What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our college basketball top 25 rankings for week 3. As always, I got Ty with me, our college football and basketball analyst. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Get us to 200 subscribers. We'll be doing that autograph item giveaway. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button to be entered. But before we get into our top 25, Ty, these 3 teams dropped from the rankings, and which one is kind of the most surprising so far in the season?
I guess Villanova. I think Texas A&M was a little overhyped. I mean, we can't forget they were in the NIT last year, so I think they were maybe overranked because of their deep run in that NIT. Dayton had one of their studs, I can't remember the name, but one of their star players was out in their game, so I think they'll bounce back. But Villanova, I expected more out of them. I know they competed with Michigan State, but they also had that loss to Temple, so it's been a rough start for them.
And then we got 5 different teams in our others receiving votes. 2 Big 10 teams, Big East, Big 12, and then obviously West Conference with St. Mary's. The Big 10 has been pretty solid, I would say, so far this year. I know it hasn't been, a lot of big games other than Michigan State essentially playing in them. But a lot of winning teams, and a lot of teams that don't have a loss yet, and if they do, it's only one. But the most encouraging, I think, team here is TCU, just because a lot of people had them highly ranked. We didn't have them ranked. We had them right here in the others receiving votes to start the year, and we put them off last week. They're back this week after a win, and if they just keep on winning, more than likely they will join the rankings at some time. But they are probably one of the teams to look out for. After a sluggish start, once they get their groove, they should get it going. But I'll start it here with 25. We got the Iowa Hawkeyes jumping in. This team, I think they get rewarded because they went on the road in the Gavitt games to face Seton Hall, and they beat them pretty, handily. Beat them by 15. They're 3-0 right now. A team that somehow, some way gets it done every year and is always north of 20, 25 wins. And it's Chris Murray. Keegan Murray's brother is going to go off and be their number one this year, already averaging 21.7 a game, and expect some big numbers this week against Omaha and Clemson.
And we're keeping Michigan in, hanging by a thread here at number 24. They got blown out by Arizona State. I actually wasn't in panic mode after that, despite getting destroyed. Arizona State made everything. They shot 60% that game. Michigan shot 30%. So I thought it was just one of those games. But then they turn around and they go to overtime last night with Ohio. So not really sure what's going on with this team. One night the defense has given up too many open threes or layups, and then the next night the offense has no flow. So they just need to put it all together. I think it's a little more worry this year though, because last year they started slow, but they had all that 5-star talent. They don't quite have that this year. So we'll see where they go.
23, we got Purdue jumping in. So you've seen 3 Big 10 teams already in our rankings. Zach Edey is to thank for them joining the rankings. And, obviously, if you got a 7-1 center and some shooters around him, and, you're going to be pretty solid. And Purdue looking like another year that they're going to be very well contending for a Big 10 championship early on. They're playing in the Phil Knight Invitational, got West Virginia first, and then who knows who they'll play after that. But if they get, I'd say, 2 wins in that, go 2-1, this Purdue team I think that's a very successful weekend for them.
And we got UConn entering the rankings here at number 22. I think they definitely could be ranked higher, but they just haven't really played anyone yet. They have dominated everyone in their 5-0 start. We'll learn a lot about them this week as they get Oregon and then either Bama or MSU. So that'll be 2 really good teams that they're playing against. But I'm really high on this team. I think they have a chance to be the best team in the Big East this year. Just we'll see how they do against real competition.
21, we got Texas Tech jumping up a few spots here after some fallings. They had a good show. If they have a good showing in Maui against Creighton, which unfortunately they already have beat Creighton today. It was the early game. So already a good showing for them. And they're going to get more than likely Arkansas right now as they're up at half. And if they can go and win that game, be 5-0, go into the championship, this Texas Tech team might be looking at a top 10 ranking next week. So if that can happen, don't be too surprised if Texas Tech is jumping up our board.
And UCLA drops 10 spots to number 20. An 0-2 week would usually take you out of the rankings this early, but they played Illinois and Baylor, 2 really good teams. They kind of got handled by Illinois, but competed with Baylor, so they still stay in here at number 20. And after getting through that, now they have a chance to start racking up some wins. I do think they'll still be a really solid team. They're really well coached. They have a lot of talent back from last year, so I think they'll rebound. But once again, like last year, they couldn't quite compete with the very top of college basketball. And so far this year, it's been more of the same. But we'll see if they can change that.
19, we got Alabama moving up, and they get Michigan State on Thursday in a great game. If you know you're not into football, more than likely college basketball will be on all day. So definitely some good games to watch there. And they will get Oregon or UConn. And whatever matchup they get, between these four teams, it's going to be a great 3 game or 4 games between those teams. Um, I think Bama, we saw it last year. They showed spurts of becoming a really good team. And could this be the year where they really put it all together and make a run for that SEC championship and potentially a national championship?
And at number 18, we have Tennessee. Took a loss, and that was kind of a head scratching loss to Colorado, but I still think they're a really good team. I think that's just college basketball. Weird things happen sometimes. We'll find out this week if that was just a fluke or if there's some holes in this team as they have Butler. That should be an easy win. Butler's not great this year, but the USC or BYU matchup could tell us a lot about how good this Tennessee team really is. But I think they'll bounce back from that loss and continue to rack up some wins.
And then 17, we got San Diego State, the Aztecs in the Mountain West. And this team, I think this is my sleeper team of the year. And I'm going to say that right now because if they can do pretty good this week in the tournament they're in, go 2-1, even win it. I mean, obviously they're going to be in the top 10 regardless next week, but a team from the Mountain West normally doesn't get this high praise early in the year. And if that's the case, then they are going to be legit because that conference is very weak. And you're looking at almost a Gonzaga situation here, with that conference as well. There'll be a team or two that can compete and possibly hand them a loss. But other than that, there's not much out there. So this San Diego State team could be looking at north of 30 wins when we come into March.
And Kentucky takes a huge drop from 1 to 16. They get upset by Michigan State in double overtime. Michigan State just Tom Izzo outcoached John Calipari there at the end of that game. I think that's the biggest takeaway from that. And then they get blown out by Gonzaga last night, who just before that had gotten blown out by Texas. So already a lot of questions for Kentucky. And I've seen Kentucky fans just panicking already. Obviously, they're coming off that St. Peter's loss last year. So not quite the start they wanted to what was supposed to be a big bounce back season. So we'll see how they rebound going forward.
15, we got Illinois, and I think this was a step in the right direction in finding out who this team really is. Obviously, they beat UCLA and then lost to Virginia. And, well, you don't have Kofi. He's gone. DeSumo, obviously, he's been gone for a few years, and they still kind of looked a little bit off last year with the guard play. But Terrence Shannon has really stepped up in these 5 games. If he can, not put up at least 21 a game, but at least consistently around that, this Illinois team is going to be tough to stop in the paint. And they get an easy matchup this week, so don't expect, Illinois to fall.
All right, 14, we have Michigan State, and this team has just gotten off to a really hot start. Seems like they always have a really good year when no one expects anything out of them. I don't know if it just puts a chip on their shoulder, but a lot of people will say they should have beat Gonzaga on the aircraft carrier, and then they turned around and upset Kentucky. Struggled a little bit with Villanova at home, but they come out with the win. That's all that matters. So I think this team is really trending in the right direction. Joey Hauser is finally starting to play up to his potential, and then the guard play is great for this team. So I think they are a force to watch out for, unless they have that February tailspin that they had last year. I think they will be a team to watch out for in March.
13, we got Auburn moving up. More than likely, this team is probably going to win the Cancun Challenge. I think it's 8 teams. That should be 3 easy wins. Then they face St. Louis the day after the championship would be. They could be, 8-0 here next week and really find out who this team is. Because right now, if you've already played 8 games throughout this year and you're 8-0, well, you're more than likely legit because, a lot of teams are struggling early, haven't really played their best potential. But Bruce Pearl and his squad obviously have a good team this year. Losing Carter doesn't help, but I think they reloaded in a good way, and it's more balanced team this year. And it's going to be interesting to see how this Auburn team can compete in the SEC as well.
At number 12, we have Creighton, a team that I thought kind of got off to a slow start. I know they were winning, but they weren't really blowing anybody out. They were kind of struggling to wins, but they got that win today over Texas Tech, so they're starting to really figure themselves out. And I think that proves they're legit. And they'll have a chance tomorrow against probably Arkansas, who's already up 13 on Louisville. So if they can win that, they will officially be the best team in the Big East. I know I said UConn was up there, but if Creighton continues to win in Maui, then they're really going to be proving themselves already.
11, we got Indiana, and this team, I think it is based off of Jackson Davis and how he does the whole year because Malik Reinu, is an incoming freshman. He is going to have a big role already, and it looks like he's ready for it through these first four games. But, obviously freshmen struggle at sometimes, and we saw it a lot last year with a lot of freshmen as well. They're going to have to get over those humps quickly, and it's going to mean a lot for this Indiana team as well because Trace Jackson Davis can't do it all himself. And if they go through that bump in a road where those two can't play well, then this Hoosiers team might tank, and it could hurt their stock going into March.
All right, number 10, we have Arizona, and this feels like a team that no one has really talked about this year after being a great team last year, obviously. And I think they have a chance to really put themselves back on the map this week as they go into Maui. They have Cincinnati to start off, a team that they should beat fairly easily. But then after that, it's going to be two pretty tough games. And if they can win both of those, they'll be right back in the thick of things like they were pretty much all year last year. And they have enough talent back that that is their ceiling. I think they could be a one seed in March again if everything goes according to plan.
At 9, we got the Duke Blue Devils in this team. Well, they had a tough loss to Kansas in the Champions Classic, but no need to panic. We can only move them down here one just because of how hot some other teams have been. But if it was up, to us, I think we really want to just keep them at 8 because it's a tough game. They're going against the team, they lost to who you haven't seen yet in our rankings. And that obviously shows that this Duke team is legit. I think we had a lot of questions coming in obviously with Coach K gone, how are they going to handle that? Not just the coaching staff, but the players, the players that have been there, especially Jeremy Roach. But he's looked great as well, Jeremy Roach, and he's taken on that leader role for this team. But Kyle Flipowski obviously has had a great start, averaging a double-double through 4 games, and I expect that to either increase or be almost the same this time next week because they have two easier opponents.
All right, at number 8, we have Baylor going 1-1 in the main event, losing to Virginia, who turns out to be a really good team. And they haven't shown up in our rankings either, and they beat Illinois the next day. So no shame in that loss, and especially after beating UCLA the next day. So that's a top 10 win for Baylor. And I know they lost a lot from last year, but they still have Scott Drew as the head coach, and they still have a lot of talent on this team. So I look for them to make a lot of noise. I think they'll be in the top 10 or around it pretty much all year. And they should be poised for another deep run in March.
7, we have Gonzaga dropping out of the top 5. And it's most in part to them getting dominated by Texas. I think that's hard to overlook this early in the season. And, obviously they had that close win against Michigan State by 1, which helps them out as well. Not just right now, but definitely going to help them in the long run if State keeps playing this way. And it's thanks to Drew Timme, obviously, the 17th year senior. He is doing great this year, and I expect him to keep doing well. They get Portland State this week, which should be 100 to 50 essentially. So expect Gonzaga to be at 7 or a little bit higher next week.
All right, at 6, we have Arkansas, another team I think is not being talked about too much, but can change that narrative this week in Maui. They are taking care of business right now with Louisville currently up 15, so they should get Creighton tomorrow in a really big matchup. That would be a top 10 matchup according to the AP. So that's a really big chance for them to prove themselves. They could match up with Arizona the next day. So two really tough games, but this team brought in, I think, 2 or 3 5 stars this year, and it seems like no one really gave them enough hype in the preseason. And I think they're going to prove a lot of people wrong here in the next few weeks.
Starting our top 5, we have the Virginia Cavaliers. after a big weekend beating Baylor and Illinois. And I don't think it's more on their performance, but I think it's a wake-up call to Duke and UNC in the ACC because everyone thought, all right, Duke and UNC, whoever wins the series this year, more than likely is going to win the conference. Everyone kind of, wrote Virginia off after not a down year for them last year, but a disappointing year. And here they are back already, beaten pretty much best of the best already. When they go into ACC play, it's going to be a very scary situation for UNC and Duke. And I think if you're a betting person, why not throw some money on Virginia to win the conference? Because we've seen some teams that are projected to win, lose by a game or two to a team like Virginia here that would be, a little under the radar because there's two heavy favorites and Virginia can get the best of you. We've seen Tony Bennett and his squad do it time in and time out, every year. And especially winning the national championship off the year before, getting upset as a 1 seed. Never doubt this Virginia program coming off of, disappointment.
All right, at number 4, we have Texas. Their win over Gonzaga speaks for itself. They looked unbelievable to me. I mean, they looked like a national championship team. Now, you're not going to get that every game out of them. That could have been just them playing out of their minds. But either way, this early in the season, you got to give them a lot of credit for that. Tyrese Hunter looks like a huge get in the transfer portal. Obviously, they still have Marcus Carr, who was really good last year. And I think they have a top 5, maybe even top 3 head coach in Chris Beard. So this program is going in the right direction, and they are just skyrocketing after last year, which was kind of a disappointment. But this year, they look poised to be potential Big 12 champion, potential Final Four team if they can keep playing like they did against Gonzaga.
At 3, we got Houston jumping in to our top 5 as well. And Kelvin Sampson and his squad look like they are going to make another run for a title and another Final Four appearance as well. Marcus Sasser, obviously, when he went down last year, this team took a big hit, and we talked about how much he meant for this team. And you're already seeing his impact in these 3 games already, and his presence is felt, on both ends of the court, averaging 17 a game and almost 3 steals a game. So he's doing it on both ends, and his help around him is going to be pivotal to, I think, the success of Houston come March, because let's face it, this team is more than likely at worst going to be a 5 seed just because they play in that weak American conference. They should get some easy wins. Look north of 25 to 30 wins when we come into March.
All right, at number 2, not number 1, we have North Carolina. They have 4 wins, and none of them have been a blowout. They've all been somewhat competitive. Some of them have came down to the last 5 minutes in a close game. So I don't know if it's kind of a hangover from their run they had last year at the end, but they are giving me some UCLA vibes from last year, a team that kind of averaged throughout the regular season last year and then made a huge run in March, and then all of a sudden they're ranked number 1. Now I know they have 4 of their 5 starters coming back from last year. They got Pete Nance, so they are loaded. But are they just playing up to their level, which was an 8 seed last year, or are they really good enough to be the national runner-up that they were? So I guess the next few weeks are where we'll start to find that.
And at 1, we have Kansas moving up. And I think this team, they just earn it every game that they play, against Duke. I think that solidified to me that, okay, this team's legit. Bill Self and his squad might just run it back yet again. Grady Dick has made an immediate impact with this team. His freshman presence, obviously big recruit that they got, and he is just hitting shot after shot when it matters. He has a 50% 3-point percentage right now, and through 4 games, it may not be something really to look at, but if he's a consistent shooter and he's shooting the ball a lot from out there, 50% is very, very good. But you also got to talk about Jalen Wilson almost averaging 25 a game and almost averaging 50% from the field as well. So this Jayhawk team can put it in the bucket, and that is for sure. And I kind of hope they play Dayton here just to see last year's rematch. We saw what happened early in the year around this time. I think it might even be the same tournament. And Dayton pulled off the upset against Kansas. And, they don't forget that for a long time, especially, Kansas being high ranked. And, if they're number 1 in our rankings again, number 2 in AP or number 3 in AP, This Jayhawk team is going to want that revenge game for sure. So if they get Dayton, hammer the money line and hammer that spread, because I think Kansas will absolutely obliterate them. But that's going to be it for our video this week. Make sure you come back next week to see who's in our top 25 and who joins and who falls out. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.